Yeah, we had our first one. We almost had one in day one. Um, so it's then finally it boiled over today for an actual fight. But there were other opportunities, and I think you guys probably saw them too, where guys were having words, and so it felt like sooner or later this was probably going to happen. And really good fight by those two. I think they respected each other after it was done. And it looks to me like there's some people here to try to impress. That's the way I read it. And when you show a physical element or an intensity, you're trying to catch people's attention. And I think that's been pretty clear over these 3 days.
The first day you mentioned Samuel Alanias, and now he's at the one device. He's one of the ones who's been standing out so far.
Well, I look at him and I mean, has he caught your guys' attention? Yeah, I mean, he's caught everybody's attention. So what's your job when you come to training camp? Catch people's attention. And he's done that and more. And I know he's been physical and he did have the fight, but just his overall intensity. He's here to make the team. We'll see if that happens, but he is here to make the team. That part he's made very clear.
Talked with Drew after the first day, and he said with the guys who have come in with this new mentality, he doesn't think his team will be pushed around anymore, was the phrase he used. Are you seeing the types of things you'd like to in that area to up the level of physicality and not pushed around this?
Yeah, I think that's really clear. Now, we have a lot of big, strong players in the camp that are still part of our development process, and they're not all going to make the team, of course, but you can see the players we brought in, some of the players are getting close, maybe a year after, maybe two. You can just see what's coming, and we sure have a lot of size and strength in the organization as far as depth. When it arrives, we'll see.
For the past couple of years, we heard from the organization that there was a very specific vocabulary used. That when players joined the club, they had to learn specific terms and some phrases that the coaching staff used, and it was Ontario and LA. Is that something that you will retain from past seasons, or will you start a new vocabulary?
No, we'll try to keep it as consistent as we can. There's no sense confusing everybody. All coaches speak a very similar language. Some people have something that's a little more personal to them. There might be a couple things, but generally the last thing you want to do is confuse the players. So, the language will stay pretty consistent.
Do you have any official update on Arthur?
I do not. Other than just what you guys saw, he's out. Wasn't there today.
It's been your first experience with Darcy Kemper. You obviously haven't seen him in the game, but just your thoughts early on his professionalism and his approach early in camp.
Well, what's caught me is I've mostly seen him at the breakfast table in the morning, and he's got a smile on his face. He has good energy. I think probably happy to be back in LA. Had great success here before. And then, I don't know if you guys noticed, and you probably wouldn't, we play a little game at the end of practice sometimes, and it's the forwards versus the defensemen versus the goaltenders, and he won. And that's the first time I've seen a goaltender win that game. So, it just shows you the kind of headspace he's in and how he's playing, and I would say he feels pretty good. So I noticed that because that was it's a hard drill for the goalie to end up as the winner in.
How nice is it to insert him into a group of goaltenders with Riddick and Cobb, the two guys that both earned their columns and both excelled the last couple of years. So now you have these three, really capable veteran goalies in the group.
Yeah, I think, and just going back, because Darcy was here before, he knows some of the guys, so they have a lot of confidence in him. They know him as a person, as a competitive goalie. So I think that helped him with his comfort level, but on the other side, same thing with the veteran players. Hey, great, it's great to have Darcy back. So he fits in pretty easily now. And of course, what Copper's done primarily 2 years ago, because he didn't get to play, and then David had a great season last season. So there's a comfort level with those three goaltenders, not only the coaches, but the players, I think, which is more important.
This is Trevor Lewis's 17th NHL season, and just talking, you said the fire still burns.
No, I know.
Day one. How great is it to see a guy like that still out there and still competing the way that he does?
Well, that's the only way you survive. You have to just love the game beyond, and not just love the game, but everything that goes with the game. So you can imagine, to keep playing at that age, you have to understand the game at a high level. When the coach talks, you actually have to pay attention once in a while because you have to know what you're supposed to do. And then when the coach sees you know what you do, you get to go out again. And then stretch that over, nowadays, what's the what's the average age of a player retiring? I don't even know that. But you start getting into your 30s as a player, and the young guys are coming, and the careers are a lot shorter. So you get into that type of an age of Louis, you have to understand the game. You got to love the game when you come to the rink, but now you got to do the work away from the rink too, to just keep yourself limber, loose, healthy. Nutrition becomes even more important. So there's just so many things that go into playing to 37, and those are all picked up on by coaches and teammates. And I think you've mentioned before, somebody has, when they talk about leadership or even just our management, so many players talked about the impact that Louis had on them last season. You know, that's a legacy, and that's not easy to do in today's game, guys. It's just so hard to keep your body in a pace with these guys flying around there at 20 years old.
This practice, you had him between Turcotte and Thomas. Are you looking at Turcotte and Thomas more as wingers?
No, all three of them play center, right? Louis played center, Turk's played center, Akil's played center. That's going to work itself out. We're not exactly sure what that'll look like in the end. You know, if they stay together as a line, it looks like that right now. But we're trying to figure that out. Who's the center on that line?
Turcotte and Thomas were talking about their shortened summer with how long they got to play last season. Do you notice maybe when guys are playing a little bit longer, even some of the new guys that have come in, coming from teams that went a little further in the playoffs, do you notice that extra pep in a training camp, or?
I wouldn't say so. I think, you know, what you worry about when those guys play longer is them fading a little bit earlier, because you start putting 18 months of hockey together and you've played a long season. It happens to Stanley Cup champions a lot. So I wasn't worried about those two. I was thinking about Fogle more than anything, because he had to play into you know, Game 7 of the finals. So short summer for him, but he looks to be skating pretty well. And what'll be important for him is that, you know, he's got another 9 months or whatever it is to go here. So he had a short window, but we'll make sure that he gets his rest too.
Couple teams have some exhibition games starting today, tomorrow. You guys have your first on Monday, and you mentioned guys that have stood out, that have made impacts. I mean, how much does that kind of affect when you're looking to put together a lineup and trying to see some of these guys in a game situation?
It'll affect it a fair amount. I think there's a couple things. So build a roster for the game, and then within that roster is who's going to play where and how much are they going to play or go into the game playing in your mind. So we're going to go into Utah. It's going to be their first exhibition game, right? First game in front of their fans. I'm thinking they're probably going to have a pretty good lineup for that game. So we start thinking, okay, if we're going to put these guys, they might have some of their top 6 forwards in that game. Should we test them against these? So these are so it's a roster, and then, okay, who's going to play against who if they're really good? Because if they have a lot of NHLers in there, for our young guys, that's going to be a real challenge. So based on how you perform in training camp, you know what, you might get a chance at playing against those guys and see what that looks like. That's part of the evaluation process.